What you're looking at is a picture of an ISO-594 test assembly machine. This machine is used when assembling reference fittings as specified in ISO 594/1 and ISO 594/2 to test pieces. The standard specifies that a specific amount of force and a specific amount of torque is required to assemble these test pieces, and the force and the torque must be applied at the same time. If you violate the force and the torque by going beyond it, they're both specified as maximums. So if you put on too much force or too much torque, you are going to invalidate your test. The people that made the standard, what they did is they said, well, who is going to be using these parts? It's a smart thing for them to do. And they determined that, well, usually medical personnel, a lot of times nurses, a lot of times doctors, will be using these parts, will making these assemblies and these connections. So they said, well, if we're going to test this, who should we test it for? Should we test it for Betty Boop? Ooh, I put it together. Or should we test it for Brutus? Oh, it's together in big solid way. So they said, well, if we test it for Brutus, it's together, then it's probably going to be a seal. But what if Betty Boop puts it together? Ew, it's together, and it leaks. So when they wrote the standard, they decided they would test it, obviously, for Betty Boop. Not much force at all. But that causes a problem, and that causes a problem for the tester, the quality personnel. The person in quality is going to actually do this test, because when that person takes this into the lab and tries to put this together, how do they know when they've put the right amount of torque and the right amount of pressure on this part? And that is where this machine comes into play. This machine, when you're working with this machine, you will set the test fitting on the lower part of the machine. You will set the test piece on the upper part of the machine. This torque gauge is set to the correct levels, and down here is a motorized unit, a motorized control, and you just have to push the button and this will rotate, and it rotates until the correct torque has been met, and at that same time the pressure is being applied. So you will have met the requirements of the standard if you use this machine. So that's the way you get it done. Without the machine, what happens if your regulating body, if the FDA comes in and says, how do you know that you assembled this with the right torque and force? With the machine, you can say, well, we use this machine, and the meter is calibrated, the pressure is calibrated, we know that we've got it done right. Without the machine, you can say, well, I know because I just put it, just lightly wrist tight. It's not going to work. So the goal here is to let you know that a machine similar to this is going to be very beneficial to you when it comes to performing your tests related to the medical Luer fittings.